Welcome back. It is Bones, and let's go ahead and take a look at some custom work. Now, as promised, I will be showing you the easiest way or a simpler way to fix the side eye if you do not like it on your McFarlane figures. Now we will be taking a look at Superboy Prime. Did a couple of things to it. I will go through it as we take a look at them, but let me go ahead and get it out of the way and take you through the mod of the eye. So first off, you have your head with your eyes looking to the side. Now, what you do not want to do is paint the eyes completely white and then add your pupil. What you want to do is use as much of the existing pupils that are there, so that way it has a little bit of the original paint and you're just adding a little bit to one side, and then you'll add a little bit of white to fill in the part you don't want. Now, the simplest way to do this is to have a toothpick. This is because you use a very little drop of paint and you actually have a little circular shape to the dab that you're going to put in there. So this is a lot simpler than going in with a brush. Now you will also need a brush. Typically I have my favorite brushes that have the finest little point, because you will need the very tip of the fine brush. Now, you do not want to use matte paint to fix the eyes. The reason being because matte paint dries with like a little film, like a little, it tends to be a little thick when it dries. And you don't want to really use gloss because it'll give it like a wet plastic shiny gleam to it that you might not want. So what I usually do is I do a mixture of gloss and matte, and that'll give you a more softer, thinner paint, which will dry into a satin finish. So your first step is you want to get the toothpick and whatever color you're going to use for the pupil. Now, traditionally this would be blue for me for the Superboy, but since I'm pretty much sure I'm going to paint the eyes red, once I'm done with this process, I'm going to go ahead and just use a matte black to give it a softer paint. And get your matte black and get the very point of the toothpick and just dab a very small amount. You don't want to stick it all in. You just want to dab the very finest tip of the toothpick, and then you want to go in and on the outer side of the iris that you want to paint. So in this case, it's going to be to your left of the pupil. You just get in there and you tap it right on that side, more towards the middle of the eye, and you just do a light tap. And you'll see it'll leave you like a little circular part, and that's what you're gonna base your eye position on, is where you dab that little tip. It's gonna want to be more straight off, right? Don't be too scared if there's any you shouldn't, but let's just say you were to put some paint on this side more than you'd like, do not worry about it, because that's what you're going to do in the second part. So you get both eyes where you want the paint, and then now you're going to mix up the white with your fine brush. So you mix up the white pretty much half and half, get a good little amount going, and then usually I'll wipe off the brush again and then dip the very tip right into like a good pool of paint. So you grab a little bit on the brush, and now what you want to do is paint the side that now you want it to be white, because the pupil is in the middle. So now you want to paint the other side very finely. Just start dabbing it in there, and you should see when you get coverage, just start moving the brush towards this way. And don't be too scared, because there's always going to be a chance to add a little dab of paint to adjust any little mistakes that you might make. So you get in there with the brush and you just dab right on the corner. Right on the corner. And then it depends which way you're going to do it. The head position you want it to be, you might have to flip it all the way around. But then you dab that same corner. Just dab it. And now that'll turn white and you'll have the retina of the eye more to the middle. Now, as I said before, any little mistakes, don't worry about it. They're happy little mistakes because you could always go in and just put a very fine little dab of paint. Now, one thing I must stress, like I said before, don't get excited. Just take your time and you'll get it the way you want it. Now, surprisingly on this one, when I was going in, it kind of left like a little sparkle of white on one of the retinas. And at first you would say, oh, you left white in there. But you know what? If you look at it, it kind of gives that, human, realistic eye, shine that it has in there. So even though it's not perfect, if you look at it, it gives it a more realistic look because it has that little tiny pinpoint white dot right in the retina. So for me, this came out perfectly. That's, that should work for you as long as you take your time and, you got to get in there. So the eyes will be fixed. So now you could put, the eyes are done. You could put Superboy's head back on. Now, if you look at the neck porthole, you could see where I dremeled out that notch in the back of his neck. And then once you pop the head back on, that notch is what allows him to now to look up a little bit more than before, actually a lot more. And now with his eyes looking straight, he looks up and directly where you want him to be. So it's pretty cool. Now when he looks down, he doesn't look so, off because he's not looking the other way. And you could still get full head articulation. Pretty awesome. Now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and get into the other things I fixed on him. Now, I did tell you all that I wanted to paint the armor because the armor is really, really silver. It even looks almost white. And I wanted to give him like a little hue of metallic blue. Now, understand that a hue isn't like completely change the color. It's just highlighted, and you still have some silver streaks in there to keep that shine to it. But if you look at it, you can see how all over the armor it has a blue tinge, but there's still parts that are primarily silver. So actually his armor now looks really nice, and it has, more presence, adds a little bit more presence to the armor. Now another thing I did do is I painted all the hoses only on one side with a darker yellow, like a more brownish yellow, because since it's all yellow, it just looks really, plain. So I did do like 3 coats over the same strip. It might be hard to pick up on the camera, but you might see a little bit of it when I move it around. But I did all the hoses like this and added just a little, a side of color to mix it up a little bit. Now moving down to the hands, I did tell you I was going to put his fist in, and I did. I matched up the paint to the other hand, more or less, and he still retains articulation. And I did change the color of the ball wrist joints, and it does make a smoother transition, like I said it would, into the hand. And he looks really awesome now. Now he has that fist he could, put up. He still has his flying hand that he could use if he's floating, or if you want him in a flying pose. So all that still retains articulation, and actually now gives him a little bit more depth to the paint work on him. So the hand's done, the wrist ball joint is done, the armor's done. The only other thing I did say I might do was paint the boots and give it more articulation. Now I did this by popping off the boots. I did try and put in a red ball joint and then the red boots, but you know what? To my eye, it didn't look right. So I went ahead and put the silver ankle ball joints back in, and then I put the red boots on, and it looks a lot cleaner. It's tricky because you just gotta look at it, and if it looks good to your eye, that means it's the right mixture of ball joint and body part. But if you look at it and it looks off, like it's cutting the either color, then that means it's probably not the right ball joint color. So I did leave the silver one, but I did paint the boots with a mixture of paint because it was hard to match up this certain color of red on the figure. Cool, I painted the bottoms and he still retains articulation in the toe joint. Now the back of the calf armor, this was pretty cool because I showed yesterday how I was hitting the calf armor and you couldn't tip the toes down like when he's in a flying pose. I actually sliced like an extra piece of plastic that was there, and when you slice it, it kind of gives it like a more, cylindrical, scalloped shape. And what was cool is that it was the whole piece is that color. So even though I cut it, it didn't expose a different color underneath. So I didn't have to repaint it. It was still the same color. I just took out that excess like plastic that was there. And what do you know? It actually helps for his feet to tip down because it gives it a little gap where it could go in there instead of, butting up to it. So now when you put him in a flight pose, you can actually point his feet down, which gives it a more, a feel of a flight, of free floating off the ground. So all in all, that's it. Now, one thing I did not do yet is paint his eyes red. Now, I did really do this for all of you guys so you could see how to straighten the eyes, but it kind of hurt me a little bit because not so much that I really like the side eye, but it's just that some poses I put him in really use the side eye to like its advantage. So what I'm thinking now is that I will not be painting his eyes red until I get another Superboy, so that way I know it's coming and I have a version that's untouched, unchanged. Or I might end up doing it just one night when I'm, bored in here. I might end up doing the eyes red, but I will put some pics up on Insta so you guys could see it. But now I've been playing with this guy, moving him around. Let's see if he stands on his own. Perfect. So, hope this helped you guys. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I really like the way he came out. He looks pretty cool. And for right now, he's going to be my main Superboy Prime until, like I said, I could get one more to open up and mess around with. But anyways, you guys keep hunting out there. Keep collecting. Keep customizing. And I will see you on the next one.